good morning. It's 7:38. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Mark. Stephen not very well this morning, but the papers have come, which is really nice. They're a bit late, probably because of last night's disaster at the World Cup, but there we go.
Had to change the front page a bit.
Well, I'm sure they must have had two lots of front pages on standby, mustn't they? In the end, said go with that one. So shall we have a look at them? We'll start with the Sunday Times, focusing on England's heart-wrenching defeat to France in the World Cup last night.
On to Sunday Express, and they have Au revoir Qatar, which we've pinched for our headlines. England losing against France in the quarter-final.
Meanwhile, the Sun expresses Harry's pain as he bites his shirt in agony.
On to the Sunday Telegraph, again, the defeat making the headline, and it's that word from Gareth Southgate to his captain on the pitch that's the front page picture.
What did he say?
You missed.
Sorry. The Observer says health unions could suspend industrial strikes if ministers agree to serious discussions over pay. You see, I wondered what he'd said to him, and I was just wondering if they'd lip-read him or so. He did put his hand in front of his mouth quite a lot.
Your seat number's 37B.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, right. Get up early, the plane's going home in the morning. Oh, dear. Shall we go through the papers now? Joining us this morning, Tom Slater, editor of Spiked Online, and Mariana Hotter, anthropologist and author. Lovely to see you both
broadcaster.
Yeah, a number of things.
Yeah.
I dread saying what you are going to tell us about, Tom, because it's in the Sunday Times and it's about Brexit.
Brexit's back. So the Brexit bill is apparently on ice. Senior officials say it won't be going back to the House of Lords because there are the prospects of a deal between the UK and the European Union over the question of the Northern Ireland Protocol.
Ah, right, OK.
So this bill that was passing through the Houses of Parliament, which would essentially allow the government to reserve certain powers to suspend unilaterally parts of Northern Ireland Protocol if they felt that it was interfering with British sovereignty, that has been put on the back burner because it seems like there is room for a deal, talk of the EU giving ground on the questions of the European Court of Justice, which of course is a big red line, certainly for a lot of Tory Brexiteers, and questions of data sharing. So it seems like the aim, particularly with the anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement approaching, is to get this done and dusted before then, not least because Joe Biden himself has made clear that he doesn't want that to interfere with his visits around that time.
And the consequences being, of course, that they've got to get government back in Northern Ireland, the power sharing agreement, and get stormed up and running again. And this is the thing that's got to be sorted before that can move forward.
Exactly. There's so many moving parts to this, as you suggest, but it's a very vexed political question, and particularly difficult at a time when you've got a government that hasn't got a hell of a lot of authority in Parliament or in the country. But it does seem like
it's not bad news, is it? It's sort of conditionally good.
Negotiations are ongoing. I mean, you do always worry about what will be given away in said negotiations, particularly when the government's in a bit of a weak position, but we can only find out in the...
Marianne, tell us about Strep A.
Oh, well, yeah, sorry, unfortunately not good news either. So people will be very aware, perhaps, that there's an outbreak of Strep A, a bacterial infection that is particularly potentially normally a bit of a cough and cold for children, but it can become this. It's the bacteria that is the basis for scarlet fever, which is doing the rounds.
Well, yeah,
and you can get this.
Has died.
Exactly. You can get this invasive version where it sort of gets into the whole body system, and then you end up with sepsis. And unfortunately, 16 children have died from this.
So what about the antibiotics then?
So if you get Strep A and you go to the GP and your child needs antibiotics, and it's when the GP says that antibiotics are needed, not needed for all things, because many coughs and colds are viral. But when you do need antibiotics, normally you take your prescription to the chemist, you get your antibiotics, you follow your course, you do it and then your kids hopefully okay. Lots of pharmacies get paid £2 something, you know, a few pennies changed from £3 by the NHS to provide antibiotics, and normally it's a sort of liquid syrup for kids or tablets for older children or adults. Pharmacies have come out and said there's profiteering going on here. There's such demand for antibiotics because there's this Strep A outbreak across the country. Wholesalers, so the sort of distributors that supply the pharmacies, have changed their prices. So it used to be about £3 and so the chemist wouldn't be out of pocket for supplying the medicine. They're now being given prices around £11, sometimes as high as £17 for the same medicines. Now, apparently the suppliers, there's no shortage in supply.
And the government has said this. It's trying to reassure.
The government has said there's no delay in supply, but the prices that the chemists are paying, they say that there is this sort of switch in contracts where if there is a distribution problem, then the NHS can go, OK, well, temporarily we'll pay a higher price to get supplies moving.
There's something interesting as well, which I'm just picking up. This is what Professor Camilla Hawthorne said from the Royal College of GPs in terms of the pharmacies. And because of their regulations, they can't dispense something different to what's on the prescription. Okay?
Yes.
So if you've got something specifically on that prescription, they can't go for an alternative which may be just as good. And obviously, if everyone's after, a particular type of penicillin...
Well, it might be something like 100 mils at this strength, and they go, well, actually, if you gave double the dose, you could have this lower strength, and they would change the prescribing, what you're supposed to give your
I've had my own pharmacist complain about this very sort of thing. Yeah, the prescription says one thing, it says like take 2 10-milligram tablets, and he said actually if I gave you the 20 milligrams, they're much cheaper, and yet they're exactly the same drug.
Yeah.
And it's the way that the pharmacists, they feel they have to juggle to try and get you the best deal, and also the best deal for the NHS. And it's a real problem for them.
Or if they've only got the 20-milligram tablets in stock, they're not allowed to dispense them to you.
They usually just try and ring the surgery.
And the other,
it's difficult.
The other problem, I think, there are increasingly GP surgeries now not dispensing themselves and using local chemists to actually do it.
That's what ours has to.
Yeah.
But they have a little deal because it's a village community. They have to give you a prescription which you then take to the village pharmacy.
Ours closes at 5 p.m. and isn't open on a Saturday.
But specifically
so on a Saturday or after 5 p.m.
But specifically to Strep A, and I think the broader conversation about how we fund the NHS, how we make sure healthcare actually works for us, and where our taxpayers' money goes. The point where distributors are holding back supplies because they're waiting for this switch to flick so that they get paid more. It's absolutely outrageous because it's profiteering on people being worried that their children are going to die.
Yeah, when the contract's already in place with the National Health Service.
It's so immoral, and I think it's good that it's getting sort of airtime because we can call it out and hopefully put a stop to it.
Yeah.
Tom, can I spin us forward to the Mirror and the sort of tourism fall off about the World Cup?
So
What's happening?
So this is an interesting story about what fans who have gone out to Qatar for the World Cup have decided to do during their time kind of in between matches and so on, because of, as we've all heard about, the exorbitant costs of everything from accommodation to beer and so on. So you've had fans who have decided there's a gap between matches, looked up the kind of cheapest flights and gone as far as Nepal, gone to Pakistan, gone and taken pictures of themselves next to Mount Everest before flying back in time for the next match, because of the fact that, if you're in Nepal, a pint costs just under £2 a go. Accommodation is very cheap. They can get there for a few £100s return.
And they can go there.
Exactly. So it's just how the fans who have made it out there are kind of definitely making the most of it and finding this actually probably cheaper than staying in Qatar for
so they're saying in between games, let's just hike up Everest for a quick photo, for a quick selfie, and then come back.
Yeah, so all those people in Qatar at the moment, now that England knocked out, will be...
They may not come straight back. They may decide to do something interesting, which I think says a lot for them.
Okay.
No, definitely.
Mail, Marianne. Workers bringing their packed lunch in, which was the origin of the Cornish pasty, of course, for tin miners all those years.
Yeah, that's it. You had your savoury end at one end and your jam end at the other, and you held it by the crust because you had dirty hands. The olden days.
Absolutely.
Well, now we have Tupperware and other similar brands that are also available of things to put your
plastic
sarnies
things that
in.
you lose the lids to.
Yeah,
exactly.
You do always lose the lids to them.
So during the 2008 recession, there was this massive uplift in things like keep cups, so you could take your own coffee on your travel with you.
And because they charge you now if you have a paper cup.
They do. Quite right too. Bring your keep cup. Yes, because Mark,
the keep cup
the
made of
planet.
plastic.
It is, but you reuse it.
Yeah,
so you're not just chucking it. It's not single
plastic,
use.
isn't it?
It is, but if you use it for the whole of its life, then that's probably good. I mean, if you want to take a pottery cup, then that
the next thing is bamboo, I suppose, isn't it? That's the thing to do, is buy a bamboo.
Oh, my head hurts.
But this is about people trying to address the cost of living crisis by taking their packed lunch to work. So Waitrose has said that searches for lunchbox, don't joke, it's Sunday morning, 17% up in the past week alone.
Hey, maybe that's the perfect Christmas present.
Yeah.
What, a lunchbox?
A lunchbox.
Flask that you can take a hot soup
Made out of
in.
bamboo.
Yeah, that'd be the perfect
bamboo
sort.
cutlery.
Or,
What
even
would you go
better...
for, Buzz Lightyear or?
You might as well enjoy it.
Maybe we're back in the age of the lunchbox.
Well, you could
I
have
know what's going to happen now. There's going to be a trade in classic lunchboxes on all these websites where you
I wish I'd
trade,
kept ours.
Let's get old sort of tin ones.
Postman Pat ones.
Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
Thunderbirds, yeah. I've still got a Tracy Island somewhere up in the,
Have you
in
really?
the attic.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that was a Christmas toy that you had.
I had to queue
Yeah.
right round the corner and down the
You have
street
to remember
outside
that.
Toys R Us.
I was going to say you could flog it for lots of money now. I'm
Probably
sure.
could. And
Yeah.
I've got the full set of Thunderbirds.
Really?
You know, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I've got
Okay.
2 of the,
Who
certain
was
of
in
them.
the Thunderbird 3?
Hang on, 3.
3 was the rocket. The blonde
well,
one.
that was-
Alan.
That was Alan. He used to get stuck up on the space
That's right.
station.
No, that was John.
That was John. John was stuck up on the space station.
And then Gordon was the one that was sent underwater.
Tom and I are just
Happy
waiting
days.
for Grandad to stop
Virgil was named after
done Heidi
the
High.
astronaut,
That's
wasn't
right.
he?
Thunderbird.
The ones who died in the real one. Yeah, they all were.
named
Yeah.
after astronauts.
Yes.
In the Mercury and Gemini.
And you can tell how old it was because the only girl, well, there were 2 girls in it. There was Lady Penelope, who drove around in a pink Rolls Royce.
Yep.
And I cannot remember her name, but she was the girl who was on Tracy Island, and she just made everybody cups of tea all the time.
Oh, God.
That's right. She was quite exotic, wasn't she?
She was very exotic.
Yeah.
Cannot remember her name. If you can.
Let us know. Yeah.
Oh, those were the days, but
We're starting to wander.
yes, we are really wandering.
Christmas. What, trees may lose their needles?
Yeah.
Time.
Okay, so
Because this is very important.
Oh, right.
warm start to winter is going to be very perilous for our Christmas trees because normally you get that cold snap and it causes the evergreen trees to basically kind of lock in their needles and stop growing. But because we had that really warm autumn, they were still growing when they got cut down. So if you've already got your live tree, now you got it last weekend or this weekend, it might be bald by Christmas Day because it didn't stop growing when it was cut, and so it will suddenly go, and all the...
So that's even if you put water in the base?
Yeah.
But there are stories about this every year, different theories.
Well,
to
this
needle
one,
shock.
apparently, lots of distributors got supermarkets and garden centres and all those places where you can go and get your tree to sign a kind of a disclaimer saying if you get complaints because the tree goes bald after a week, it's not our fault.
blame us.
It's
Don't
meant
blame
to.
us.
Blame the consumer for not watering it properly.
Okay.
Well, blame the consumer for not waiting until late enough, apparently. They did say, get everyone to just wait and buy their trees, because now,
by
the trees
now
that are getting cut now will hold their leaves till...
Shake the frost off them if you were bringing one in now.
Oh, it'd be so wintry, wouldn't it, to carry
Tom
a
and
Christmas tree?
Marianne, thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
exactly. But
Merry
we are
Christmas.
continuing. We are allowed to continue talking about Christmas because it is now only 2 weeks away.